Folks have seen the agenda. Can we have any objections to approving the agenda by consent? All right, no objections. The agenda is approved. Second, let's move on to approval of the minutes. Have folks had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any changes or corrections necessary? Seeing none, any objections to approving the minutes by acclamation? All right, seeing none, the minutes are approved. Next, moving on to citizen comments. This is an opportunity for anyone wishing to address the commission on an item not on our agenda for this evening. Do we have anyone wishing to address the commission? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to old business. This is Planning and Zoning 2203, which is an ordinance amending sections 400.1370 and 400.1380 of the zoning code relating to conditional uses in the GC, General Commercial District, and the PD, Planned Development Overlay Districts, to eliminate certain auto-oriented and outdated uses. This is a piece of business that we discussed at our last meeting. There was significant public comment and discussion from the commission on this. And just to cover a few of those, but I do believe we want to hear from staff, from the commissioners, and from the public again. Some of the things that we discussed were really kind of the purpose of this change, which is, in the opinion of staff, that submitted to bring us closer in line to our comprehensive plan. That comprehensive plan was completed, I believe, 3 years ago, so it is a recent comprehensive plan after significant expense and obviously the input of our consultants and the community on what we wanted to see. It is intended to draw lines to basically say these are the desires of the community, and that is kind of our North Star here on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We did have some conversations about the impact to existing business owners that this would cause. We had some conversations around, basically the purpose of the comprehensive plan and some of the other changes, things like occupancy gaps. We talked about some things such as, whether non-conforming use would survive the sale of property and that sort of thing, as well as when a certain dollar amounts for an improvement to a property. So we're happy to talk about those again, but I just wanted to recap that since there was considerable debate. But now we have this in front of us. I think we'll turn first again to staff report. We probably don't need to go over the whole staff report again, but just to kind of remind us of some of the basic points of this.
Click to share. Is it showing my PowerPoint? It is. Okay. So this was the PowerPoint, Whitney Kelly on behalf of the City of Brentwood. This is the PowerPoint from the previous meeting, just as a refresher. I won't go too much in detail as you've already reviewed all of this, but again, the purpose of the text amendment is to be more in line with the uses along Brentwood Boulevard and in the PD district in Manchester, in the remaining part that is Zone GC, to meet with the goals and recommendations of the comprehensive plan. The overall comprehensive plan did discuss that Brentwood Boulevard and Manchester are key corridors, and they wanted less auto-oriented uses and uses to create more of a town center in these areas. So that's why I was bringing this application forward. I won't go into any district. Most of these uses were also removed from the MC district when those properties were rezoned in 2019. It does include a conditional use along the Manchester corridor for new vehicle sales in the district that is not currently allowed in the PD or GC district, but all of the other uses that we are talking about tonight are already excluded from the MC district. And therefore, we were looking for consistency with that district as well as with the comprehensive plan. So the text amendment is to remove certain uses that are no longer consistent, and as well as those uses that are no longer being built, such as orphanages or children's homes. Those are more residential and are built more in a residential kind of setting than in a commercial corridor. And coin-operated laundry, those kind of things. And so that would be for the GC district, and then we have it here for the Planned Development Overlay District. I just wanted to the discussion was very intense last time, and we got into the details, so I can answer any specific questions. And we just wanted to give you time to take all of this into consideration, but would like to hear from you, so.
Any questions for staff from members of the commission? All right, I think just a couple other reminders for folks, which is, of course, this is a recommendation that we make. This goes to the Board of Aldermen. They're the ones who actually can make this change. So what they're looking for from us is a recommendation. If this proposed change really meets the spirit of the comprehensive plan, and if we have significant concerns there. I do believe we also want to hear from the public tonight, and so I will ask any members of the public that wish to address the board on, or excuse me, the commission on this topic to please approach, state your name and your address, and we're happy to hear from you. Yes, Mr. Nurmerger.
Just to ask a question, can you put that list up that had the line throughs that you were talking, what's going to be changed?
Sure, sorry about that.
That's all right.
There's the GC and the plan development. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. There we go. Okay. There's the GC and the plan development, which are very similar, so, okay. Yeah, I was just reminded, I did forward you a public comment that was emailed us to earlier today. I can read that into the record if you wish. Sorry, but it is in your packet.
I think that we discussed that it isn't necessary to read it into the record. I will characterize it if that's appropriate, which was, this was a resident next to, or that was notified, I believe, from being, I guess, within the distance for this change, and was against the amendment. And so asked this commission to reject the amendment, the amended language. I do want to cover, and again, I want to open this up for public comment too, but want to cover a few things, which I think, which we talked about last time, but go in a little more detail. We understand that this is, the intent of this is to kind of bring some conformity, again, to follow the comprehensive plan, but it is also focused primarily, at least is my understanding, on new businesses. It's taking a look at new businesses and to basically what is the direction that we're trying to take Brentwood. It is not designed to be punitive or to limit existing businesses' operations. That's very important. I think some of the concerns, and I'd be interested in a little more conversation, I think, with staff, of what are some of those protections in place that ensure that this isn't going to limit or cause concerns, problems, or at least to limit those problems for the businesses that have been operating here in Brentwood for many years in these, in those locations that they have.
So I pulled up the non-conforming section of the zoning code, which does allow for any lawfully existing non-conforming use to may be continued so as otherwise lawful, subject to the provisions of the non-conforming section, which allows for the normal maintenance, repair, and replacement, installation, or relocation of non-bearing walls. It allows for the continuation and some minor structural remodeling. However, it has to be less, any remodeling or rehabilitation to the extent it has to be less than 50% of its fair market value prior to such renovation, remodeling, or rehabilitation. So any non-conforming use cannot be extended, expanded, enlarged, or increased in intensity. And it can only be changed to a permitted use within the district. So it is allowed to continue. I just wanted to bring that specific section up for everyone to see. It is allowed to continue as its existing form. You can remodel it as long as it's not more than 50% of the overall fair market value. It's just it can't increase in intensity. So those protections are already in place under the nonconformity section.
So can I ask, let's see, if a owner wanted to increase and wanted to remodel or renovate their existing property that is under this conditional use, it would be a non-conforming use at this point, and it was going to be 75 or 80% of the total value, what would be the process that they would be able to do that, or how would they be able to do that?
They can certainly apply for, first, we could certainly look at a variance, but it's generally because that might not pass in that you can't create the condition in which you're seeking the variance from. So the other option could be, or most likely to be successful, is they could say, come before this board again and say, listen, we're not going to expand beyond the current property. We just need to renovate. It's costing more Then the 70, we can look at we would like for you to consider a text amendment at that time when there's more specifics for the project or what needs to be done to address their specific needs as part of a text amendment.
Which I understand is similar to another case we're hearing tonight, that we have a
Right.
specific project in line, and we're looking for a text amendment to, allow that
Okay.
project, okay. Then the language I take a look at, expanded and enlarged, that's fairly straightforward to me. What would the definition of increased in intensity be? Is there a definition for that?
So Missouri courts have kind of looked at that. Increase in intensity might mean that you go from normal hours of operation, let's say between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., and then they want to go all night. Or they want to, let's say, add a car wash where they normally didn't have one. So that's kind of the idea of the increase in intensity.
Thank you. One of the other things we talked about was, again, the ability for ownership to pass for this non-conforming use to still be allowed. I know that there was some conversation and a question about also a gap period. So, for example, if you had an owner where a property or where a tenant was operating one of the non-conforming businesses, that tenant then left, and then there was a time frame under which that non-conforming kind of authorization would expire. Can you talk about that a little bit and help understand that? My apologies.
The code does specify that a non-conforming use in any building or premise is discontinued for over a year, regardless of the reservation of intent not to abandon or to resume such use. Any subsequent use would have to comply with the provisions of the zoning code, including those zoning district in which the structure is located. So, do you have any?
No, that's clear to me, but I think the key part there is regardless of the intent to. So even if the owner was attempting to get a new tenant, basically, that 1 year of non-use would trigger. There's no exception for that. Okay. Any other questions, again, from commission? All right. And any other members of the public wishing to address the commission? If you could please
Okay,
state your
take my
name.
mask off,
Yep,
right?
please.
Okay, thank you.
Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Lynn Wallace, and the address is 2120 Brentwood. So I'm the owner of the On the Run station at 2120 Brentwood. And I was here at the last meeting on January 12th, so appreciate the opportunity to speak again. At the last P&Z meeting, I gave a brief history of our company, talked about why we object to the proposed restrictions under this text amendment. I also spoke about the investment that we've made in the property, and then the recent investment we made in other properties adjoining our property to rebuild our store. And those were based on conversations that we had had with the city of Brentwood, and the excitement that we experienced from those conversations that this would be a needed and wanted uplift to our existing site, which is old and doesn't meet the needs of our customers and really is non-competitive in our industry. So I just wanted to give a few more examples, and I'm happy to answer any questions about what I previously shared with you about our company, the history, but I'd like to talk more about really the process, and definitely not an attorney and don't know all the details, but I do know as a business owner who's made an extensive investment in this community, as we do in other communities in Missouri, that I do have some knowledge and some insight into what happens. And one example is what you just went over regarding the ability to expand. I mean, just like if someone was a homeowner and they moved into the home and had one child, well, now they have 3 children and they need to expand. And just expanding at a certain percent, when they've made an investment in the community, they're good, upstanding community citizens, and now you're telling them that they can expand and bring their home up to date. You know, so that's the same situation that we have at our store. It's an old, tired store. It's not competitive, and it's not what our customers want anymore. And if you look at the chain of our stores, that's what we have done over the course of the last 25 years, is we've gone in where stores are tired and old, and we've upgraded them, typically raised and rebuild, which we would want to do at our store here in Brentwood. And I will say that this text amendment seems very punitive. It seems as if it's picking on certain industries in the community. We are the only fuel and convenience store on the Brentwood corridor. There is one at the end of Manchester, but we are the only service of this type. And even with this not up to standard facility from a customer standpoint, it's still one of our very good stores. So to me, that's saying the community needs this type of service. So currently, we have the convenience store and we have fuel. What that fuel looks like in the future, I know every store that we're rebuilding, we are either actually putting in an electric charger or laying the conduits for that opportunity when the need is there from the community. So we don't know what that type of energy will look like, right, in 10 years, 15 years, but we are preparing for that. We are in that business. So even during COVID, when other businesses shut down, we were deemed by federal, state, and local agencies that we were an essential business. And so we are an essential business. People need to get to where they're going. Brentwood is a public thoroughfare, really, where lots of cars are, traveling to get to work, to get to schools, to get to churches, to get to their activities. And so I think I appreciate the comprehensive plan and the more town square feeling that Brentwood would like, but it doesn't seem like, that would work on the Brentwood corridor, especially along that where there is so much traffic already. I just feel like having this exclusion for this certain industry really just shouldn't be allowed. Legally, I don't know what that looks like, but just shouldn't be allowed. And if we can't, it would not be in our company's philosophy to have an inferior location, inferior site for the communities where we operate. We're a good corporate citizen. We participate in the chambers. We participate in other activities going on in the community, which I stated last time. And to have a facility that just doesn't meet the consumer's needs, it doesn't meet our standards, and I don't think it would meet Brentwood standards, but you can't keep investing in a facility that is not ready for the future. So I would hate to see that facility continue to deteriorate and not meet our customers' needs. So I guess I would like to see if there are any questions for me based on either the last P&Z meeting or this meeting just now. Yes.
My mic on. I have to remind everyone. One question and just a quick comment, which the question is, understanding that, and I remember last time you were talking about the ability to expand and to modernize the facility. Do you have a time frame for that? Because I will point out that we don't have a certain statutory restriction on when this recommendation goes forward. It's not like it has to be done within 30 days. Do you have a time frame for when your project would go forward at that facility?
Well, typically the lengthiest piece of a project is getting approval from the municipality. So if you all would not approve it or not recommend to approve this, if the city council would approve our plans, we could move forward I don't know, I mean, Mark Jordan's here, I would say within a year or so, we would probably be ready to move forward. I mean, there are certain supply situations today that probably wouldn't have happened a few years ago, but once we have approval and we can put a shovel in the ground, we're typically in the site within 3 to 4 months.
Thank you. The comment I'll make is simply, I understand your point about expansion as your family grows, but I will say that that's also something that we do through planning and zoning, is there are restrictions on how far you can build out your house. You don't have the unlimited right to build all the way to your property line, for example. So it is something we do. It's something that is seen as the city's right and responsibility too. So I appreciate that. Other questions from Ms. Wallace? Mr. Nurnberger?
I had a question regarding you're on Brentwood Boulevard. Are they PD currently?
Yes.
It's PD.
You know, they're
Yeah.
currently PD. So, because we're talking on more about Manchester Road, not as much about Brentwood Boulevard and that sort of thing. So it's like, to me, we need that essential business for sure. Use it all the time or whatever. So it's like, and it's a good location or whatever. And I remember when it was a gas station originally. So it's like, you've done all amazing things on that spot or whatever. But like you're saying, you can't expand all the way. It's like I don't think you have room for a car wash in that location, that sort of thing. So it's going to be limited on what you can, even with the amendment passed and that sort of thing. So I understand what you're saying, and I take it to heart, and I use your service all the time. So
Thank you, we appreciate your business.
Thank you.
And it really, again, just feels very, I don't like to want to, but it feels like, the city is trying, or if this would go through, is picking winners and losers, and it doesn't feel like, there's competition out there, there are customers using the services, so it feels very unfair, quite honestly.
Any other
Well,
comments? Sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna, this was a comment that was made at the prior meeting, and the whole point of the comprehensive plan is what is the community wants to see along certain parts of their community. Along Brentwood Boulevard, they wanted a more walkable community. So in essence, the comprehensive plan and the zoning code is about what uses are allowed where.
And I think it's balanced, and I appreciate that, because I do understand, and it's been something that I think we've focused on, I certainly have tried, we have existing businesses, and I understand your point of should not be punished or penalized to continue to operate. And I think that's been a focus of making sure that they can continue to operate, that property value doesn't diminish because of any change like this. And I think that's what we're discussing and having conversation about. So I appreciate that.
But a business isn't stagnant, right? So what worked 10 years ago isn't going to work today. So I know you all understand that.
Understand. Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Wallace.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
very much.
Any other members of the public? Please, if you could state your name and address, please.
My name is Jay Howe, and I reside at 17 York Drive here in Brentwood. I'm a lifelong resident of Brentwood. I'm standing in for my brother Larry tonight, who appeared before the commission at your last meeting and spoke regarding our family's property at 2229 South Brentwood. Our family's owned that piece of property for 50 or 60 years. I didn't look up the exact date before coming tonight, but for quite a long time. For the last 25 years of our ownership, the property's been occupied by another family business, albeit a significantly different family business than ours. It's been occupied by Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which of course everyone in the room is familiar with and has probably used their services many times. I'm not here to talk about technicalities or legal issues because I'm not qualified to do that, but I am here to talk about unintended consequences of this proposed text amendment. Enterprise has been in this community for 25 years. They've served the community well in terms of convenience, convenience of renting an automobile. They've paid property taxes, they've paid sales taxes, and they've invested in this property significantly in that 25-year period. Enterprise has operations in 100 countries. They have 30-plus locations here in St. Louis. And I'm concerned about unduly alarming them that their use is outdated or non-conforming or unlawful. Why do we want to send that message to them when they've been here for 25 years and been a member and supported this community for that period of time? I'd propose to you that we, citizens of Brentwood, need Enterprise as a service and an amenity more than Enterprise needs us. And it would be, I would presume, pretty easy for them to close up shop in Brentwood and move their operations to Maplewood or Kirkwood or Clayton. And then what is Brentwood left with? Another vacant building, another vacant parcel on Brentwood Boulevard, which is a very real possibility. And when you look at the size of that parcel and what might be able to replace a use like Enterprise, they're extremely limited. So we're very concerned about unintended consequences. And as this goes forward, we're certainly will be prepared to speak to the technical and legal aspects of this. I certainly agree with Mrs. Wallace that it seems like this text amendment is choosing winners and losers, and sending a message to an operation like Enterprise that thanks for being here, but we're not giving any consideration to what you've done for this community over the last 25 years. So that's the message I wanted to impart.
Recording
today.
stopped. Recording in progress.
Right. Is she talking to me? No.
I don't think so. Appreciate it, Mr. Howe. A couple quick questions. One of the things that we focused on a bit was that non-conforming use. And I know that you've just described that that's something that could raise red flags for a tenant for Enterprise. Can you talk a little bit about that? But I do want to also remind folks that use can continue. So it's not that Enterprise would have to stop operating. They can continue to operate, or another business of that. But can you explain a little bit, why they may pull out? Why would they may
Well,
stop?
I don't have a crystal ball
Right.
as to how they might react to it. They, like all of us, endured, significant hardships through the pandemic in the second half of 2020. Their business was dramatically reduced, and we were concerned that they might close the location then. They've weathered through the pandemic, but I don't want to send them to the message that they're a non-conforming, outdated, unlawful use of the property. Why would they put any more money into it if that's the attitude of the city? I do have a question, though. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Please.
With this text amendment, are there any automotive uses allowed at all in either the MC or GC district?
I believe it would be an LID, and then what's one more?
The Retail Service Corridor District. Yeah.
What's an LID? I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Light
light industrial.
industrial.
Brentwood, the light industrial area.
Along
so,
front-
Hanley Industrial, yeah.
So we're under the impression that there is a carve-out, my term, not the official term, for 2625 Brentwood, at the corner of Brentwood and Manchester, the northwest corner of that intersection.
Kelly, are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar. I think that's, just by the overview, I think that's the
Schwartz?
Schwartzes, or what, who are they?
Schwartz, yeah.
Schwartz? They have the old vehicles,
Yep,
short vehicles, or,
yes.
yeah, they're mostly inside, though, yeah.
Okay, and what is it, zone?
That is zone GC. Yeah.
So there was I reference a memo dated January 12 from Ms. Kelly that references what we're interpreting as a carve-out for that specific piece of property. It doesn't mention that piece of property by address, but it seems to refer to it. Are we mistaken in that regard?
Yes, I didn't refer to any specific use, or I didn't refer to anything. I wasn't, what are you referring to?
Again, I'm referring to paragraph 4 on page 2 of the January 12th memo.
I said, the MC Manchester Corridor Commercial District examined the uses for the area east of Brentwood Boulevard and already excludes the auto-oriented uses for this area. It does include a conditional use for the manufacturer franchise of new vehicles automobile dealerships, whose point of sale is within the district. That was the distinction I was making of all of these uses were already removed from the Manchester corridor, but that's east of this property.
So does 2625 Brentwood Boulevard, does it enjoy any sort of an exception
No,
to this text amendment?
no.
Other than non-conforming use, if this were to pass, that would be a non-conforming use as well, is my understanding.
And
Is that correct?
Again, our interpretation of it is off then, but I wanted to ask that question.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions from the commission for Mr. Howe? Thank you, Mr. Howe, appreciate it. Any other members of the public? Sir. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Marcus Faustin. I live at 8777 Brentwood Place, so 3 houses down from the gas station. So just basically 2 things. So first, we totally use the On the Run all the time. It's a great, convenience to have to go grab drinks and sodas and slushies and, get my wife gas, but I don't have to drive far away. So we totally understand and appreciate that business. But I also understand the kind of, I forget what was it, it's not the master plan, what is it?
Comprehensive plan.
The comprehensive, sorry. So the comprehensive plan to allow us to kind of be able to utilize Brentwood more. I have an 8-month-old daughter. We take her for walks, but we won't go anywhere near Brentwood, really, just, And I don't know if the changing the business along that will change that at all or what, but making that more of a walkable space, making it more of a town center feel. I think myself and a lot of other residents would really appreciate that. I could totally see how that would also not only just make it more livable, but there's a lot of return on value for our property that could come from that. So I think that's I think that plan, however it was generated, sounds like a good idea. I understand the business's point of view, but what I would just wanted to put out there is kind of like from a resident's point of view, which is to say that though those businesses are really useful, I'm sure they do also act as an economic engine for a lot of different places. From our point of view, from a resident's point of view, I think moving towards this amendment might be a good step to take. And then secondly, just more broadly, is like this idea of expansion and kind of picking winners and losers. That's what zoning is supposed to be about, right? We're supposed to be able to pick the kinds of businesses that we want near our homes and our schools. And then the expansion itself, and I don't know much about the rules here, but the expansion itself, if they really wanted to expand, that would have to get zoned too, right? We would be, personally, I can't speak for my neighbors or anybody else, I would be okay with a rebuild and some moderate expansion, but the kind of expansion I think that they're thinking about would be completely unacceptable to me anyway, and I think it would hurt our property value. I think it would really change the kind of look and feel of our neighborhood. So I don't want to necessarily tie these two together. I know the amendment is separate than the expansion itself, but to a certain extent, it feels a little bit coupled.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
My name is Michelle Kraus. I own 8779 and 8769 Brentwood Place. And along with Marcus, we we do appreciate having the mobile there. I think our biggest concern and what we're worried about and thinking is just what does this expansion gonna entail towards our area? We already are pretty crippled of getting in and out and going anywhere to where we are. And any more expansion would be more hindering us and making it less livable than more livable, and part of the reason why we moved into Brentwood and came into the Brentwood area in the first place. So I think more than just the change, just the ideas of these expansions into certain spaces in certain areas is something that is key, as well as some of the other things that Marcus has said as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Kraus.
Thank you.
My name is Kate Walker, and I live at 8771 Brentwood Place. And again, I use the mobile on the run regularly. It's very convenient, but I have major concerns about the type of expansion that they're talking about. We do have a lot of traffic issues getting into and out of Brentwood Place already, and I think that this would just make that so much worse. And also, so there's a house on our street that's been vacant for somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 years now. There's been a smoke alarm going off inside for 2 weeks. And I believe it's owned by the owners of the Mobile on the Run. There's an abandoned property at the corner that's been abandoned for many years. And it just already feels like they're not being great neighbors in this process. And so it would really be great if, instead of expansion of a gas station, if we could get some kind of business that would make it more of that town feel. I would love something more walkable to make Brentwood more accessible. When I have children, when we're out, I have a son in high school, and we worry about him getting across Brentwood regularly. If it was more walkable and if it just felt safer, I would really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker.
Hi, I was here at the last meeting. My name is Lynn Good, 8783 Brentwood Place. There are 3 streets. Now, when Mobile talks about rebuilding, what we're talking about is building on the vacant property which is just to their south, because that's what they have purchased and that's what their plan is. So we're not talking about rebuilding the existing station. They're talking about putting a much larger station. So at Brentwood Place, we have an auto-related business now, which is the Mobile on the Run. They will still own that property. We could have an auto-related business on the other side of our street. So potentially, there could be 2 auto-related businesses right there. That's going to affect not just our street. There's Bridgeport, there's Garden Court, and all 3 of those streets, including ours, those are no-outlet streets. We have no other options, really, for in and out. We do have an alley, but for all practical purposes, we can't go the other way. And I've had 44 years of experience living by an auto-related business. I can give you every detail you want. I don't want to bore you with all of it. The main things I saw when Mobile on the Run expanded to convenience store, there's a whole lot more large semi-type trucks coming in and out of there. It's a lot more noise. It's not as safe when you have trucks in and out on, in that area of Brentwood. And we're also a narrow street, but also you've got more pollution. Sometimes I just go back in my house, the fumes. It's like, no, I can't be out here right now. I'm breathing that. There's definitely more trash, a lot more trash. And are we going to limit some of this? Are we going to say we're going to do more of this and let some businesses get bigger? And what's to stop having more gas stations and more pollution and more noise and trucks, and it doesn't give Brentwood much of a town feel at all. I avoid even going up and down my street. I use the alley. I don't even turn up Brentwood Place because of all the in and out and craziness and traffic now. I don't want to imagine what the traffic's going to be like if some of these businesses expand that bring in a lot of traffic all day long. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Good. Any other comments from the public? All right. Looking to the commission, obviously we have some options, just as we had last time we heard this. We can make a motion for a recommendation. We can make a motion to table and hold this over if we are not ready to make a decision. But that is up to the commission here At this point, it is open, excuse me, for any comment. My apologies. Mr. Moran, do you have comment? No. If not, Mr. Nuremberg, any comment?
I have one comment that based upon what the lady was just saying. Are they looking to expand to other properties, like residential properties that they own, that they're going to expand? Because that would have to have a different zoning for that lot as well. So it's like they would have to come to, before us to have that taken care of before they go for any plan.
I believe those properties are along Brentwood Boulevard, so they're in GC, and so then it would be under current, if that's
They're under,
correct.
yeah,
Sorry.
Brentwood Boulevard is
PD.
mostly PD, yeah.
Excuse me, my apologies.
Yeah.
But then that would be under current, the current language, that would be a conditional use, a permitted use.
Oh, okay, so those properties are already zoned that. Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioners, questions? Open for a motion.
Yeah, I move to recommend approval of the draft text amendment ordinance attached to the staff report on application 22003 to remove certain auto-oriented and outdated uses from the conditional use sections of the GC General Commercial and PD Plan Development Overlay District, as discussed at the last meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on January the 12th.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will just slightly amend that to, it was as discussed at the prior meeting and tonight's meeting. So,
Thank you.
Second by Mr. Nurnberger. Roll call, please.
Mark Vavaza,
Yes.
John Nurnberger,
Yes.
Lisa Sharing,
yes.
Paul Moran, yeah. Jefferson Moore.
No.
And the draft text amendment has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and can go forward to the Board of Aldermen, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So this will be moved forward to the Board of Aldermen at its meeting on February 22nd.
All right. Moving to our next order of business, we have new business. This is Planning and Zoning 2204, a text amendment amending section 400.1380, conditional uses, and E1, use regulations in the PD Plan Development Overlay District regarding multifamily developments. Staff report, please.
We'll have
sorry.
the applicant.
My apologies. Well, yes, right. We have an applicant. It was the applicant present, and you could please give us a overview of what you're proposing here.
Going to help him set up his PowerPoint.
Whitney, when I want to go to the next slide, do I just hit the circle here?
You're going to hit the arrow buttons, either up or down or.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Could you state your name and who you're representing, if you don't mind?
Yes. My name is Mike Doster. I am the land use attorney on the development team for the petitioner or applicant, Cornerstone Brentwood LLC. I'm here tonight to briefly comment on the reason why this request is before you. Cornerstone Brentwood LLC has been contemplating developing a mixed-use project that it would include a Planet Fitness, apartments, and a parking structure, all in one integrated structure. In our preliminary discussions with staff, we had considered rezoning the property out of Planned Development District to Urban Development District. But in our discussions with staff, it was clear that that probably was not desired, that it needed to stay in Planned Development District. As a result, the density regulation in the Planned Development District is really too low for this type of development. And so what we're asking is that the city make a text amendment, adopt a text amendment that would give the city a tool, a conditional use permit tool that would allow the city to consider a greater density that can otherwise be obtained under the Planned Development District. So that's really all we're trying to do now. And assuming that the text amendment is passed, we would then proceed to file appropriate and necessary applications with the city and go through the normal process of getting the development approved. I think with that, what I'd like to do is to turn this over to, well, I'll go through a couple of slides here first, and they're in your packet, I believe. So what we're looking to do by way of the text amendment, as I said, is to add a conditional use. And as you can see in the slide, it's quoted here. And it's also in the staff report, which is a fair presentation of what we're trying to accomplish. Elevator apartment buildings with densities exceeding what is currently permitted in the PD districts can be approved through the conditional use permit process, which obviously means you would have to review it and decide whether or not you think the request for an increased density is appropriate. So we're here tonight before you, and our development team includes the two gentlemen seated behind me, Jeff Mugg and Dave Maston. I believe Dave's going to speak a little bit to the concept that we would ultimately propose. It's not completely refined and finished yet, but it will give you an idea of what we're looking at specifically in this development. And I think I went the wrong way with the arrow. Here we go. And again, we think this is not just for us. It would be a tool the city could use on any development if it made sense to do so. Dave, you're up.
My name is David Maston, St. Louis Design Alliance. We're the architects for the project. And if I hit the down arrow, we'll keep on going. Is that right?
I think that's it.
There it goes.
You are moving.
Okay. I want to go through this fairly quickly. I don't know if you all have seen it or not. I don't want to dwell on a lot of details. Again, it's still a work in progress, but this is the basic approach to things here. Certainly, the footprint we think is pretty well established. You can see where the Planet Fitness would be. I'm getting some feedback here. Is that, I don't know. In any event, you can see we've got a parking garage that's part of this. It's what we call a podium building. So we put the garage down low, and then we put the apartments up above, both the garage and in this case, the Planet Fitness as well. And then this is a first floor plan. You kind of see how it all rings around a central corridor, a central courtyard. And that's what's called an amenity deck now. So that's where all the pool and all the goodies, all the playthings are out there outside. There are additional spaces that are off of that. And then you can see it's a typical floor, which looks a whole lot like that floor, except there's a few more public spaces down on the first floor. And then that's an idea of what we're thinking about for the exterior. So it's a large building. You'll be able to see it over the top of the Metrolink tracks. You'll be able to see it coming down Hanley. It's really, there's a lot of things that are almost an extension of what's to the north, right? Up where Spring Hill Suites and the other apartments are. That's that direction. What you see with the windows on the, which would be the south side, that's the Planet Fitness area. We may have a few less windows than that when you see it coming back again, but that's the general idea behind it. Balconies and a lot of ins and outs on the building. Again, it's still being discussed with staff. We understand that. But that's the basic approach to this. We think it's a very workable location. And we're right up against a Metrolink. On the one side, we're part of, right now, part of the industrial park. But it's right there as you come in, and it's the Planet Fitness folks are really excited about being there, and we think it's a great location, and it has very little impact on anybody else that would be a neighbor, we think.
Understanding that this isn't design review, whenever you show floor plans, I like to dig in. Is it a single level of parking you're doing for 254 units?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
We went away.
That is not going to meet, I don't care how we change it, that's not going to meet. Yeah.
So that's more the south side, and that's more looking from at the corner, kind of looking back to the northeast.
Gotcha.
And then if we were to go, you can see we have ramps going down.
Okay.
So we have a little bit up and a little bit, so we have a floor up, and then we got another floor down below. It's a lot of cars.
That's, gotcha. I saw ground level, and then I saw, and I was just, yeah, gotcha. Looked different in the rendering, so I appreciate that. Do want to hit the staff report here, but go ahead, Mr. Nuremberger, please.
Yeah, I'll hit share. Can you end yours?
What do you want me to do?
Hit the little circle button.
This one? What do you want to see?
I wanted to show my PowerPoint presentation, so you need to end yours.
You know how to do this one?
No,
Oh, okay.
but I'm gonna take a chance here. Yeah, I think you just had to push it. Did we
push
do
it.
it?
All right.
How's that?
We need an attorney to do these things.
Lord help us.
Okay. Whitney Kelly on behalf of the city of Brentwood. As the applicants have indicated, they are looking for a text amendment to the Plan Development Overlay District to allow for greater density as part of a conditional use permit. The stated purpose of the Plan Development Overlay District does include provide a scale and flexibility of development which could not otherwise be achieved through fixed single-use zoning districts. And it is to relate to the development of retail, office, and multifamily residential uses to the adopted development plan. While this is not in Brentwood Boulevard or Manchester, but it is relevant to the purpose of this text amendment. Currently, all multifamily residential districts are allowed as a permitted use. However, they are currently limited if they're 0 to 20% of a project, they're limited to 25 units per acre. If it's 20 to 80% of a project, it's 30 units per acre. And if it's 80 to 100% of a project, it's 20 units per acre. Which doesn't really address how large-scale developments such as this ones are being developed at this time. It is more for low-level garden-style apartments. So that's why they're seeking the text amendment before you tonight. And this would allow for the Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately the Board of Aldermen to be able to review all of the project in its entirety, including an increase in density as part of a conditional use permit. And therefore, at that point, we would get into specific site-related issues, design issues, parking, as part of that review. So staff is proposing a minor amendment to their original application, just for clarification of ease. It would be adding this use, multi-tenant apartment or condo buildings with an elevator at a height and density as established as a conditional use under the conditional use permit section. And then we would simply add, under the use intensity section, just add an asterisk that would allow for the maximum density to be increased as part of a conditional use permit. So if they only wanted to do it as a permitted use and they can meet the 25 units per acre, they can still do that, but anything above that, or 20 units per acre for this one, anything above that would just require conditional use, is how we're proposing that. So, any questions?
Taking a look at two things, actually. What is the approximate increase? I believe it was in the staff report, but compared to where we are now, what the ordinance says, how much of an increase are we're talking about here with the project proposed, i.e., what would be allowed? What would be allowed? I think it's 3.67 acres or somewhere around that.
3.67 acres. Under the current code, it would only be allowed 72 units per acre. I think that's what I calculated.
Okay.
They are looking at 254 units, which would be closer to the 70 units per acre. Yeah.
And then can you compare that to, I saw obviously we have guidance for hotel motel. Is understanding those are much smaller and they're not
Right.
apartments. How does this compare to that?
So if you look at this slide, oh, sorry.
There, yeah.
Yeah, so there, the current Currently, the code does say that if a hotel or motel is 20 units per acre, or 20% of a mixed-use development project, you can go up to 100 units per acre. Motel, hotel of 20 to 80% of a project can go up to 200 units per acre, and 80 to 100% of a project would be 150 units per acre.
So a hotel motel on this site, which would be a huge one, would be roughly 600, even greater than that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was just trying to get an idea of scale there. Any other questions from the commission? I'm sure we have. Mr. Moore?
Thank you. Is there any historical comparison we can make with the Hanley Station development and what its density was at the time it was passed?
I could go back and do that if you actually look at that. I did not do that for this application. I'd have to, yeah, you don't, okay. I'd have to go back and do some research on that. Yeah.
I think that,
Have that to be a to-do.
Mr. Nuremberger?
I was curious that this, it used to be like UD at one point. I think we changed it to PD because of development for Hanley Station. I think that's what happened. So to me, it's a better use than general commercial or what is in Hanley Industrial Court already, or right now, whatever they're tearing down or whatever. So I think that is the intended use for, we talk about the comprehensive plan. I think that was what it was intended for, to have residential near the Metro link, near everything. So I'm not sure why we need to change the text amendment other than the owner of the property wants to have it changed to go forward. But I would approve it as a conditional use as it sits, as a planned development or whatever, because I think that's what we want to have done. So,
Understanding, I don't think we have that ability to do that because it goes outside basically what we're allowed to approve as a conditional use at this point.
is that,
That's why we're here tonight. The current code limits the density of residential units to that 20 units per acre because they would be over 80% of the project. And so that's why they need the text amendment is for your consideration to even for you to even consider the proposed development at a greater density.
So-
It has to be added as a conditional use.
I guess I'm saying it's like, is that for all the planned development, is there's another apartment unit that comes by, they could ask for that
Correct.
as well?
Correct.
So there's no
It would
way
be-
that we can do it without changing the text amendment?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Given that this text amendment is tied into a desired,
You have your microphone on? Yep, sorry.
given this text amendment is tied to a proposed development, were other parties that are in Hanley Industrial Court notified of this text amendment?
Yes. As part of the text amendment, I did send a public notice to all properties within the planned development overlay district throughout the city, as I did for the prior text amendment, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to confirm, because, I mean, I think it looks great, but.
Mr. Fafana?
Is there any, I guess, would there be any negative impact if we pass this and for some reason the project, we didn't approve the project or it didn't go forward or get built and now we've changed our text amendment? Or,
Well, I mean, since we have it as a conditional use, it allows the Planning and Zoning Commission to review each project that would come forward. So the Plan Develop Overlay District does already provide some protections regarding heights where they're adjacent to residential uses. So we would get into the zoning for that, for each project. But
But I don't really see any impact. It would then be made part of your code, and a subsequent developer could come in and could use the same, text amendment to develop something similar. So really, I think the issue here is not whether you want to allow this particular project to go forward, but whether you want projects like this to go forward in the PD district and not be limited by the density limitations right now. I think that that's a broader question.
Any other questions from the commission? I would say that I think that what Mr. Nuremberg was saying was that these are exactly the kinds of projects I think we were expecting to have, and so I think that that is great to see, and appreciate this being brought forward. With that, however, I am open for a motion from the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the draft text amendment ordinance attached to the staff report on application 22004 to allow for greater density for multifamily developments as a conditional use permit within the PD Plan Development Overlay District as discussed in this conversation at this meeting by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Schering. All those, actually, excuse me, roll call. Used to my other.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lisa Schering,
Yes.
Mark Favazza,
Yes.
John Nurnberger,
Yes.
Jeff Moore,
Yes.
and Paul Moran, yes. That's passed unanimously, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. All right, we have one other piece of new business. This is not on the agenda, but I'm going to use the chairman's prerogative. We have a award tonight.
Oh, as you're setting, just to, for the public to note,
Yep.
this will move forward to the March 9th Board of Aldermen meeting. The noticing for text amendment does require notification in the local newspaper, which is greater delay, so it was already published, so that it won't go on the February 22nd, it will move to the March 9th.
March 9th, thank you. And hopefully this will come as a surprise to him, but Mr. Nurnberger, I want to note that after over 20 years, we actually can't figure out how long you've been on the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's been a while. We wanted to present you with this recognition for your service here. We're not chasing you away, but just thought that it was over 20 years is a retirement age.
When Ken Robertson get elected to the Board of Law that year, that's when I came on, so thank you very much.
Aldermanic report. We actually have some folks present tonight if we want to have an aldermanic mayoral report. Oh, my goodness. Should we stand at attention?
Thank you, everybody. The only reason I wanted to stand up is just to give you an update on where we are on Brentwood Bound. This should only take like 45 minutes. If we can get the slideshow going, that'd be great. No, just, you may already know this, you may not, but on Monday, the Board of Aldermen approved the purchase of the playground equipment for down at the playground in the Brentwood Bound area, which we are now calling, that park is no longer Norm West Park, it is now Brentwood Park. And what was Brentwood Park is the Brentwood Sports Complex. And over the last year or so, we've been able to get St. Louis County to give us permission to put in pedestrian lights at the train tracks there at the Bi-State and Russell. So we're putting in a sidewalk on the north side of Russell, if I got the street right. Is that right, John? That is Russell. And so we're putting in a sidewalk there, and we're putting in where that sidewalk will hit Brentwood Boulevard, a pedestrian crosswalk that will be controlled by traffic lights. So the nice thing about that is we are connecting those two parks, the Brentwood Sports Complex with the new Brentwood Park. And in the Brentwood Park, if you've looked at the drawings, you'll see that there is an amphitheater in there with a lake. There is a brand new event building, which is spectacular, beautiful looking building with a new parking lot, and that building will be, people can rent that out. They'll have a lot of restrooms in it as well. And now what looks like what we're definitely putting in is this rather large, I don't even want to call it a playground. It doesn't do its service. More of a play space, has 5 separate areas in there. And when you look at what was being presented to the board, these are unique play features that We don't believe there's anything like that on this side of the Missouri River in St. Louis. If you want to see something like that, you'd have to go to O'Fallon or to Wentzville. And even, we know that because it's the same company. The company that did those two parks out there, O'Day and Veterans, is the one that's helped us with this. So we're moving forward on that. The trail is definitely going in, the GRG trail. So just imagine all those amenities on the GRG trail. And so we do believe that you guys are going to see a lot of work over the next year or 2 years as that area starts turning over. So that was the only reason, just give you a little update on where things are on Brentwood Bound.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very glad to hear that we have a destination playground in the works, so I can stop hearing about Rocket Park, which is a great place. Don't get me wrong. Rocket Park's great. I'd love to have something in Brentwood, so thank you very much. All right. Anything else from staff report? Anything else to share with us, Ms. Kelly?
We did get an application for the March meeting, so if you could please mark your calendars. It is another text amendment. The Animal Protection, the Animal Humane Society, when they were rezoned to UD as part of the hotel, they were made non-conforming. At the time, they didn't consider that they would want to do a renovation. They now want to do an addition and a renovation, so they will need a conditional use permit.
They're over 50%, I take it.
Yeah. And well, and then, so,
Good business, yeah.
APA, it's the, yeah, APA animal, yeah. So, and that's all I have.
Great, we appreciate it. Any other business or comments from commissioners? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you so much.